Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another sports extravaganza. I'm Mike Pinto, alongside my co-host and brother, Anthony Pinto. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
All right, Mike. First show of the new year, kicking off. And I love that opening graphic. That's going to be the most important game so far of the new year. And you know what, Mike? I'm going to put my 2020 glasses on and make a prediction.
What? Already? Go ahead.
The Tigers will win this game.
Oh, all right. I see what you did there. Ladies and gentlemen, the LSU Tigers versus the Clemson Tigers, right?
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Good job with that. Can't wait. Monday night, national championship game, Mercedes-Benz Superdome, New Orleans, LSU. Great. Definitely punched their ticket emphatically, right?
Yes.
All right. I mean, demolition of Oklahoma. And then and we have to give kudos to Clemson. I mean, good job out of them. They edged out Ohio State. So, let's pick up the story where we left off. With that being said, we're going to welcome in and welcome back from our last episode, our LSU Insider, Tim Olsen. Tim, welcome. And congratulations.
Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Well,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
Tim, on the last episode, you were good enough to call in. You predicted a victory with LSU, but boy, oh boy, as a matter of fact, we'll go over to, our next graphic if we can. And I don't know if even the most avid LSU fan thought that Joe Burrow was going to throw for 7 touchdowns, and
the first half,
all in the first half. I think he just got tired, so
he just threw another one.
Here we go. Tim, give us your thoughts on the game as it progressed.
We were watching the game and we just felt like, just seeing how complete that first half was. I mean, I was reading a lot of the commentary on some of the LSU message boards that I read during the game, and a lot of people were saying it was the most complete half on both sides of the football that they really had ever seen in college or professional football, and I really have to agree with that. I felt like, defensively, we schemed well. Aranda had a good plan for a very athletic, Oklahoma offense with CeeDee Lamb at receiver, one of the top receivers in the country, and Jalen Hurts, who's beaten LSU before. So I think defensively we tightened some of the leaks and fixed some of the leaks that we had in the past. And then offensively, Burrow was just on fire. I mean, that connection he had with Justin Jefferson was just incredible. I mean, they were certainly on the same page the whole game. It was just unbelievable.
Hey, Tim, so looking forward to this week's matchup, I mean, has there ever been a matchup like this in terms of the QBs? I think it's a historic matchup. If you take a look at Burrow, right, it's probably the greatest season that a quarterback has ever had with the 55 touchdowns, 5,000 yards, the 77% completion accuracy rate. And then you look at, Trevor Lawrence. Who knows when, he's undefeated, and when all is said and done, he might put the best career together of a quarterback. So this is an unbelievable matchup.
Yeah, and I think the amazing thing is just the two storylines are just so interesting because, Burrow had a decent season last year, but with all the accolades, he's gained this year, the records he's breaking. I mean, he could break the single-season touchdown record, in the next game if he's able to throw for 4. And then, of course, Trevor Lawrence, his coming out party last year in the national championship, not having lost a game in college and just kind of being the guy who's taking down some of the giants. He beat Alabama, as a freshman, and he's certainly probably the number 1 pick in next year's draft. So it's just really interesting seeing this battle back and forth, and I can't think of a better QB versus QB matchup in recent memory at all.
So obviously they're not, going head to head, at the same time. So let's do it this way. I'm going to make the case for Clemson, and then see if you could see how you would rebut that and make the case for LSU. Obviously, I think what Clemson will want to do is to keep Burrow off the field as much as possible. I think they even realize that, shootout wouldn't be in their favor to go toe-to-toe with them. So I think offensively, maybe they try to get Etienne going, running the ball, and try to eat some clock, get some first downs that way, and as I say, keep Burrow off the field. And defensively, I think that what they try to do is slow down LSU in the red zone, try to confuse Burrow. I think one guy that's the key is this guy, Isaiah Simmons. He's like a safety / linebacker. I think they're going to, put him all over the field and try to give them different looks and confuse Burrow and hope the defense can make a few stops and keep the game close.
I think it's going to be a tall task for Burrow because Simmons is so athletic, and the secondary for Clemson has given great quarterbacks over the past couple of years fits. I mean, if you look at this year, Justin Fields struggled in the last game in the playoff, and last year a lot of the same guys have returned, and Tua struggled in the national championship, and Clemson dominated. I would say I think the one X factor offensively for LSU. A lot of people would look to Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming out of the backfield because he's been such a dynamic threat. But I think Thaddeus Moss, the wide receiver, the tight end, who's Randy Moss's son, I mean, he came out, had a great game against Oklahoma, and I think he's somebody that can give matchup problems to the linebackers because he is so athletic. He's extremely fast, has great hands, and he's 6'3", 250 pounds. So this is a guy that's big but can move. So I think kind of in the mid-range passing game, he's the guy that's going to open things up a little bit in some of the shorter yardage situations where they may not be able to run the ball, but they might be able to pass for 5-8 yards here and there.
Well, Tim, we're going to go over to a graphic. We're going to go a little bit out of order. We'll go to G5, but getting back to what you guys have been saying, this prolific matchup between Burrow and Lawrence. And one thing, I chuckle a little bit when I think back at that game with the 7 touchdown passes that he threw. Justin Jefferson, 227 yards, 4 TDs, and when I see these mock drafts, he's not even in the top 3 wide receivers.
Send him to the Jets.
I'll take him. I'll take him.
It'd be a great fit.
Is he the best wide receiver on the team?
It's funny because Jamar Chase actually won the Blitnikoff Award, and talent-wise, I think it's pretty close, but it's almost like the situation between Landry and Beckham we talked about when I was on the show last. So I think those guys, Chase and Jefferson will probably both have great pro careers. And then kind of the X factor on the receiving core is Terrace Marshall Jr. He's been hurt a couple of times the past few games. He's looking to come back into the game full health. So as your third wideout, who was the number 1 wide receiver recruit of the country 2 years ago, he's certainly somebody that can make a difference that people aren't really thinking about because they're so focused on Chase and Jefferson.
Yeah. Tim, I have a question. So we know LSU probably has the advantage because it's kind of like a home field there in New Orleans. And I think Clemson has an advantage because they've been there before, have been to the championship game. I think one thing that's unprecedented here is that this 16-day gap. I was wondering, number one, who do you think it benefits, and number two, give the coaches more time to look at film, and I'm sure by now they know every nuance of what the other team does. Do you see any kind of a new wrinkle that they would put into the playbook to try to throw Clemson off?
I think it's interesting because from a head coach perspective, Ed Orgeron and Dabo Swinney are actually, pretty similar in that they're both great motivators, they're great recruiters, they inspire a lot of passion amongst, their players and fan bases. So I think they'll both have the teams very ready to play, and I think the assistant coaches, the matchup defensively, between Brent Venables and the Clemson defense versus the Joe Brady offense, and Joe Brady and Steve Ensminger offense for LSU will be really interesting to watch. And I think that the scheming back and forth between the assistant coaches will really be the interesting play to watch there. The one thing I think that people may be surprised about with LSU defensively is that Michael Divinity Jr. has been a starting linebacker the past 3 years. He's been hurt and then got suspended for the past couple of games, but he's actually eligible to come back and play in the national championship. So he was a guy that people looked at as a potential first or second round draft pick. He's coming back. He may not start, but I think he may make a difference defensively as, they can use him and spell some of the other hybrid linebacker defensive ends that we have, or linebacker safeties as well, where he can kind of play outside linebacker, but also move up a little bit on the edge and rush the passer. So he's a guy to watch out for as well.
Wow, it's almost an embarrassment of riches. I mean, it's amazing. And on the, running back, Hilaire, probable. Tell us about your thoughts in terms of how healthy he is.
So I'm hearing he's actually he's pretty close to 100%. He's very excited to get out there and play, and I think we used him sparingly against Oklahoma just because he really wasn't needed, but he got enough time on the field where I think now that he's been practicing fully, full contact, he'll be ready to go in the championship. So it will be interesting. Another storyline on the Clemson side is that Travis Etienne, he was recruited heavily by LSU. There's some animosity there. Coach O said somebody we missed out on. Certainly you would have been a great addition to the LSU Tigers. But there's a lot of backstory there, so that'll incite a lot of passion in Etienne as well. Coming back and playing in Louisiana.
Hey Tim, we don't spend a lot of time looking at games from a gambling perspective, but I had a thought. I was telling my brother I was a little bit surprised when the line originally came out, what they called a look-ahead line, like if Clemson will play LSU. The original line was 3, and then after the blowout, it's been steadily climbing like all week, and it's I think 6.5 now, and most of the money is still coming in on LSU, and that surprised me a little bit. In that here's a team playing an undefeated national champion, and I don't know, that could give motivation to the Clemson being the underdog here.
Yeah, and Dabo Swinney certainly relishes the role of the underdog, so he always uses that to his advantage. I think the home field is interesting too for LSU because the last 2 national championships that LSU won were played in the Superdome back in 2003 and 2007. So, I think just having what looks to be maybe a 65-35 split in favor of LSU and local fans will certainly help. And I think Joe Burrow is very motivated to go out there and prove to the world that he can win it all. But Swinney, he's certainly a master motivator. His mentality that's Clemson against the world. So I'm a little surprised too to see the money flowing where it's at. I figured you'd see a tighter spread, but I think a lot of people are factoring in that home field advantage and how it's worked in LSU's favor in the past.
Well, Tim, the over-under is 69 and a half. You know what? I think your guy Burrow can handle that all by himself.
That's the first half over and under.
Exactly. You know what? We're going to go over to graphic G6. Derek Stingley, and not only is he an outstanding cornerback, but there's a backstory. Anthony, I know you find it very interesting.
Yeah, Tim, obviously Mike and I have a few years on you, but I can remember that. I don't know. There are very few things that leave a lasting impression, and that Darryl Stingley injury was certainly one that guys of our generation will never forget. And just reading a little bit about the background, and so then his son also played football, and I just think it's fascinating that Darryl, while he never said that. I don't think Jack Tatum ever apologized, but it kind of is what it is. And he never had his son or his grandson he never said you can't play football. Just be careful, protect yourself. I just watching this kid. He plays with such an aggressiveness. It just kind of your mind goes back. You just wonder if he ever thinks about it. I don't know. Being more local on the scene, how do they approach it down there?
Yeah, Derek Stingley's dad coaches football in the Baton Rouge area, and I think he played minor league baseball as well. He's very athletic, And then having, obviously the horrible backstory with Darryl Stingley, his grandfather, and the hit that Jack Tatum put on him and is pretty notorious, I think motivates Derek Stingley, the cornerback, in that, I think he's very young, when his dad told him about the history of it, didn't really know his grandfather all that well because he obviously passed away at a younger age due to the injury. But I think he's certainly motivated because he came in as the top cornerback prospect in the country. He's had an outstanding year, first-team All-American. He's just a complete difference maker in a game like this. And I think certain teams try to exploit him, because he's a freshman early on in the season. And then he wound up, I think, with 6 interceptions in the season. Outstanding pass defense. He was always in the middle of the action, rarely gets beat. There were a couple of games where he struggled on technique a little bit, but he's still a young player. I just think he's out there with a lot of motivation for the local crowd, comes from a long line of great athletes, and he's certainly proud to be from Louisiana and represent the school on the big stage. So yeah. I think he'll have a very good game.
Right. Well, we'll go over to the next graphic. We actually have a picture of his grandfather in the wheelchair. It's 3 generations there. That's Darryl in the wheelchair, and then the dad, and then Derek as a youngster. So
I guess the game has changed over the years, but back then that was just such a jarring thing to see. And,
yeah, and as my brother said, we're a lot older than you, Tib, so we remember that. And one thing that people would find amazing, fascinating, whatever you want to say, it happened during a preseason game.
Right.
It wasn't even a regular season game. So, I mean, it just makes the hit that much more, disturbing. But, it's a reminder that football is a violent sport, or it can be, at times. But just as you said, I mean, the grandson is an outstanding talent, and wouldn't it be beautiful if he can continue the legacy of his family by being a standout at LSU and then even further into the NFL, carry the family name forward. Just going to go over to our next graphic and just tie things together with that New Orleans tie-in and the Superdome and everything like that. Tim, I mean, you when you see the clip, when you watch this episode, you're going to cringe a little bit. I got to ask you, we have Kyle Rudolph going up to haul the winning catch.
OPI.
Yeah. Was that pass interference? Kirk Cousins throws a 4-yard pass on a fade route. Looked like he pushed off a little.
Yeah, that was definitely a sore subject for the Saints fans around here, just because the last 2 seasons, the way they ended on the last play of the game, I think it's almost like Saints fans have been resigned to the fact that the football gods just don't have it in their favor, and there's going to be that last-minute play that just does them in. I think this game felt a little bit different for the Saints because, early on, Will Lutz missed the field goal. They didn't seem to have much momentum offensively like they normally do, and Minnesota certainly came to play defensively. I think they got a lot of pressure on Breeze, were able to shut down Kamara. So I don't think Saints fans felt it as personally as they did the past 2 years. Certainly not like last year against the Rams when that blatant, pass interference was missed. But I think it is interesting because, we talked about during the season only 4 of the reviewable pass interference plays were overturned. There was no way in that situation the NFL would have overturned that call. So I think people realized that was not going to happen, but it was a bad ending for the Saints for sure.
Right, but at the same time, I'm sitting there and I'm saying, boy, this would be the ultimate makeup call if you.
I was thinking the same thing. I think everybody thought that a little bit, and then when it looked like it was about to end, and then they started talking about it being potentially reviewable, and the players started looking around. Yeah, there was a certain part of me thinking, this is the way we're going to get it back.
Right. We want to thank you for calling in, Tim. But before we go, we're going to go over to G4, and your dad was good enough to send me a picture of you guys at your house during the game, during the Peach Bowl when you won the semifinal game. And I know you're familiar with the picture because I asked him to, for the picture, and I mentioned we were going to use it on the show. So if you can, Do you recall who's in that picture, and maybe you can give him a shout out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe the picture is me, my dad, Alan Olsen, my wife's cousin, Ari Ross, and her husband, Kyle Ross, and then her other cousin, Craig Tamborella. So we had a lot of folks over for my daughter's one-year birthday party. It just so happened it was the same day as the game. So everybody stayed over and watched the game at night, and man, it was just, there was a lot of excitement, a lot of cheering, and just to have it culminate in the big victory the way it did, everybody was really excited to have it happen, especially on the date of the birthday party, too.
And I think you got John Smith, I think, snuck into the picture, too. Is he in that picture?
Yes, and so that's my father-in-law as well. I couldn't remember exactly who was in the picture. Yes, my father-in-law.
And you got a beautiful house, by the way. We're gonna ask my brother to weigh in on a final score prediction, then yourself, and then
Yeah. I think it's going to be a terrific game, Tim. Probably not quite the track meet or shootout that everybody thinks. I think when the dust settles, 30-24 LSU.
There you go. Tim, how confident are you?
I'm sorry, Mike?
Okay, how confident are you?
We actually talked about it at the office today. A lot of people will be, work down the street from the Superdome. So a lot of people will be either working from home or taking a day off on Monday. We had a group of us kind of pick the scores. I said, I think we're looking at 41-24 LSU. I feel like we're going to kind of put it away in the third quarter, and then I think Burrow is going to throw another touchdown pass late in the game. I think Jamar Chase is going to have a big catch because he really didn't have much action in the Oklahoma game. So I think we're going to pull away late, but I think it will be pretty close early on. And then I just think the home crowd will certainly factor in LSU's favor.
One last thing, Tim. So the Giants hired a new coach. They're looking for an offensive coordinator. I got two names on the short list, Joe Lombardi or Joe Brady. Who do you want to give up?
Oh, man. Lombardi would be a big loss for the Saints. I think we can let Lombardi go. I feel like Sean Payton at least has a decent enough grasp on the offense, given his offensive mindset. So I think Lombardi, if he's the guy, he'd go. I don't think LSU is going to let Brady go for as long as they can keep him. They're going to back up the truck and try to keep him at LSU for a long time.
Yeah. That's right. They are. They're going to back up the brake truck. I'm going to say I agree with you, Tim. I think LSU wins. They're going to cover the spread. And I have an additional rooting interest. Monday night is the big game. Monday night, this show airs on Community Channel. So at 10 o'clock.
We want the
So
ratings.
we want a blowout early, and then they come over and they watch us at 10 o'clock.
I love
Tim,
it.
Thank you for calling in. And I just want to let you know I'm doing my best impersonation of Coach O with my gravelly voice and everything like that. There's nothing wrong with my voice. I'm just doing a Coach O impersonation. Tim, thank you so much. Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. Good luck,
LSU
Tim.
Tigers, as a matter of fact.
Take care, guys.
There you go. Anthony.
Enjoy the game.